Hey everyone, thanks so much for joining. My name is Jack Selwood. I'm co-founder and CEO of Grapple, and I'm excited to get started in a few minutes. Today we're going to be building a customer health tracking dashboard using Grapple, and I'm also going to preview our new AI interface that we're going to ship sometime soon in the next couple of weeks. Some exciting announcements today and things to share. We'll get started in just a couple minutes and give folks some time to join. While folks are joining, I thought I'd just share some updates on Grapple sort of generally. We're hard at work adding support for more types of data sources. We recently added support for databases like Postgres and Supabase, GitHub, and then we also ship support for NPM. So if you're an open source company or you're working on an open source project, you can bring in your NPM download stats directly into Grapple. You can track adoption and traction of your product or what you're working on, which is pretty cool. We also have support for subscription management platforms like Stripe, Maxio, and Boardway. And we'd love to add support for whatever data sources you want to see. So let us know, and we can add support for any sort of SaaS or web app product or database pretty easily. If you have a custom data source you want to connect with Grapple, we're also working on ways right now to bring custom data sources into Grapple. So feel free to chat with us at cloudgrapple.com or shoot me an email, jack@cloudgrapple.com. I might regret mentioning my email in a transcript floating around on the internet. We'll see. So, okay, well, it is time to begin, and so I'm excited to dig in today. As a high-level recap, and I'm going to turn down the music in the background so that's a little bit softer. Grapple is the world's first do-it-yourself data platform. My co-founder Andrew and I have worked with self-service data tools like Power BI, Looker, Tableau, and many others over the last decade, and what we found is that these tools aren't actually self-service, even though their whole sort of claim to fame is the fact that they are self-service. We're sort of changing the paradigm, and we think that do-it-yourself is a better descriptor of what data platforms need. And so Grapple is a complete solution in a box. It includes everything you need to build a professional and powerful data stack inside your business. And this might live alongside your existing data stack and your existing data team. Or if you don't have a data team already, it can be kind of your full data team and data stack in a box. For those nerds out there that want to know what that means, it means that Grapple ships with an ETL, a data warehouse, a modeling layer, and a visualization layer. It has everything included. And that sounds like a lot of work, but we really have this strong thesis at Grapple that there are a lot of people out there who can think about data and can think with data. They understand columns and rows, and they know what math and aggregation does, and they can think through it, but they get stuck writing SQL, or they get stuck actually accessing all their data. And so with Grapple, we're trying to give them everything in one bundle so that they're able to actually build the dashboards that they're after. So one of the early dashboards that I had the idea for when I started building Grapple was a customer health tracker dashboard. Or sort of more broadly, a dashboard that brings together data from across the business so you can understand the context of your customers all in one place. And what Grapple excels at is bringing together data from a lot of your different data sources. And so let's actually dive in, and I'll start, before we build a dashboard right away, I'll just show you what I've already built and explain a little bit more about customer health tracking. So here we're jumping into Grapple. And for those of you that have never seen the Grapple interface, I'll just sort of take a step back and explain what we're looking at. Here on the right-hand side, taking up most of the screen, we're looking at a dashboard that I've already spent a couple minutes building in Grapple. And then on the left-hand side, we can see all the data sources I've connected, things like Zendesk, Google Sheets, Stripe, HubSpot, Supabase, and others. And we have support for about almost 30 different data sources right now. And you can add a data source by just logging into your account, or sometimes with an API key. But you don't need to have already synced this data to anywhere else. And if you're not ready to share all of your data from a particular source with Grapple yet, you can always just upload a CSV or JSON file. So here I'm looking at a dashboard to help me understand the health of my customer base. This is really common if you are a SaaS company, a professional services company, maybe an agency or something like that. You want to know if there's customers requiring your attention. So today we're going to be working with all mock data. So if you see emails like Instagram.com, know that this is all mock data. So we can see here in the upper right-hand corner that I'm showing customers that need attention. We have 280 customers that are high priority and need attention. And this is compared to our second most popular priority, which is low. And so there's only 43 customers in low priority. We should see that low number go up. We need to take care of some of these high priority customers. In the upper right-hand corner here, I can see app logos, and if I hover over them, I can see what data this project is using. And so this project is pulling together a ton of data. It's a really powerful dashboard. I'm looking at data across Stripe, HubSpot, Zendesk, and Supabase all in one place. And if I click on Map Data, I can actually jump in and see the data map that's happening behind the scenes to power this dashboard. And if you understand what joins are, this is essentially Grapple's joining interface. Grapple always performs an inner right join, so we're always working left to right. A record has to exist to the left for it to join to the right. So here we're starting with all my Supabase users. We're joining to my Zendesk data to find their tickets, and then we're joining with HubSpot contacts to be able to pull in any deals associated with users. And then we're pulling in their financial data from Stripe by going from user to customers to payments and subscriptions. And then I'm pulling in some other data into Supabase. This entire interface is no code. So if I wanted to edit a join, for example, I could click on it and I can control here what field I'm setting on either side of the join. So email on the Supabase users table and email on the Zendesk users. And I can add more joins as well. If I wanted to, for example, join users, for example, to a Google Sheet, I could come in and click plus, search across all of my available collections, and then, for example, choose email, click save, and then I would now have access across those two. We want to automate this experience in Grapple more, and we have some ideas for how to do this. This is one of the least AI magical parts of the product, but for those of you that understand how joins work, or if you've written a VLOOKUP, this is a really powerful way to bring in lots of context across your projects. And I'm more than happy to help. Feel free, like I said earlier, head over to cloudgrapple.com or click on the chat button in the right-hand corner. That goes to my phone, and I'll walk you through how to use this interface. But once you have your data connected, that's when you can start to really build a powerful project. So here we're looking at a dashboard I've already started putting together. One thing you might have noticed when I switched back to this view is my data loaded immediately with Grapple. There's a ton of caching under the hood, so that you're never left waiting for a dashboard load. As soon as the dashboard loads from the cached version, we load a fresh version of the data. So even though there's caching, you're only seeing potentially old data for a few seconds. If I scroll down here, we see a couple different visualizations. I see a pivot table here of my top accounts by email in terms of the ones that need the most help, and then account per priority. So we can see that high and medium are taking up the vast majority. A lot of my customers need a lot of help, and only a few of my customers are low priority. So sounds like we have some work to do to go help our customers. But what is indicating this customer priority? I built some custom logic in this dashboard with Grapple, and I want to show you how that works. So here, if we scroll down, we're looking now at the underlying data of this dashboard. And I can always hover and click and see, okay, this data is coming from Supabase, this is team count. And then we see here that it says calculation. You can use AI and Grapple to generate spreadsheet formulas and aggregations at a column level. And we're not going to show you sort of the SQL that's running for this because most of our users don't know how to read SQL. But we will show you sort of a spreadsheet or friendly pseudocode version of the calculation. So you can always audit sort of the math that's going on behind the scenes. So here you can see that to calculate team count, we're counting Supabase team memberships in the data set. And then we're actually using this team count to indicate onboarding status. So if a customer hasn't onboarded, we're not going to sort of prioritize them from a health perspective. You could change that. You could maybe want to prioritize customers who haven't onboarded. So here you can see the kind of the calculated logic here is if team count is greater than 0, then return invited, otherwise sign up. And I generated all these with natural language, and we'll start a new project in a couple minutes, and I'll show you how to do that. Then over here, we have our first calculation that brings data from a different app. So here, there's data from HubSpot Deals, and we can see here that the calculation is a little bit more in depth. We're summing the number of deals that are not closed won or closed lost. So this is the open deal amount. For example, if a customer has an open deal, we might really want to prioritize any support tickets so that it doesn't torpedo the sales team's opportunity to close that deal. If you wanted to include total pipeline here, for example, you could. And I can always click into a calculation and tweak the logic, all with natural language. Again, I don't have to write pseudocode or spreadsheet formulas in order to modify that. And I'll actually show you all this in action. We're using created at for my users to anchor some reports. And then if we scroll over here, we see a few more aggregations. And so if I click on this, we can see we're counting Zendesk tickets where the status is open, new, or pending. And a number of my customers have a lot of tickets open. And then really cool, we're showing the maximum age of the oldest ticket that's still open. So there's a lot of logic that's going on behind the scenes to calculate this. Because this is mock data, I created and opened all these tickets on the same day, 42 days ago. So you're going to see 42. That's not a bug. That's actually what the data looks like. If you had created tickets not on the same day, which is probably what your data actually looks like, you'd see this number. And then we can see here payment status from the customer's most recent payment, which is cool. And we can scroll down through this data and see and sort of scan, like, does anyone have any invoices that like didn't go through? Maybe you want to prioritize a payment that didn't go through, or following up with the customer if you're in a customer success role and say, hey, your most recent renewal didn't work. I'll come back to this customer priority in a second, but then we have another column here that's summing all deals across all contacts and companies, regardless of stage, to just understand, are any of these users customers? And then we actually have a filter up here in the upper left-hand corner, total deal amount. So you can filter in Grapple on an aggregated column, again, without writing any code, all with natural language. And what's cool about this is saying, I only want to prioritize people in this dashboard who are actually customers who have had a deal either in the pipeline or that has closed one. We use all that data to then construct a customer priority. And so you can customize this to be as complicated or as simple as you want. My logic is a little bit more straightforward than some customer health scoring algorithms. And so I'm prioritizing if a customer's most recent payment isn't succeeded, then return high priority. I really want to follow up with that customer because the fact that their payment didn't go through might indicate that they don't know it didn't go through or that they're about to churn, and I should really contact that customer. Then if they have an open deal right now, we're going to count them as medium. And then, or if they have open Zendesk tickets, otherwise everyone else is low. And so this is a pretty powerful dashboard that pulls together a lot. I actually want to start building this from scratch to show you how easy it is. So I can click on any of these app icons in the data table in Grapple to jump to that sort of base data set. And so I'm going to do that to start this project from scratch. So I clicked on Superbase. Now we're looking at just my Superbase users. I'm going to click Start Project. Now we have a new project, and I'm going to build this project all from scratch. Before we start manipulating the project, I want to get all my data ready. And so I'm going to come up in the upper right corner and click Map Data. And I'm going to start mapping data between those apps that we were looking at a second ago, Zendesk, HubSpot, and Stripe, to my Superbase data. So I can come to existing source, choose users, type in email. I know email is a common key across my warehouse. And then I'm going to also pull in contacts, and I'm going to choose email on Superbase users, and now we can see we added contacts. And one thing that's really cool is that this automatically joined companies for me because Grapple knows how to join data internally in an app. And so we only added one join, but Grapple automatically brought in another, saving me time. Let's add another. Let's bring in my Stripe data. So I'm going to type in email and then type in customer and then also email there, and we'll see this data come in as well. And what's really cool is Grapple brought in multiple collections this time, payments and subscriptions. And then one more time, let's bring in Zendesk data. And so I'm going to come and search for users and email and hit save. And now we can see we really quickly joined a ton of data. If you need any help improving sort of the fields across your data sources so that you can actually join, let us know. We're more than happy to help you backfill data to make it joinable across places. Let's get back to project now. And by default, Grapple shows me the first 5 columns of whatever my base data set is. And this is helpful, but there's some that I'm not going to use. So I'm going to delete IP address, and I'm going to delete user ID. And I'll keep first name for now, just in case there's a formula later that I want to use. And now let's actually start to dig in and build a dashboard. So one thing that's new is that Grapple's interface is moving entirely towards a text-driven interface and entirely towards keyboard shortcuts so that you can move through building a dashboard really, really fast. So if I hit Command-K, that highlights the Ask Grapple toolbar, so I can start building and customizing my project. For example, in Ask Grapple, I could come to Add and insert a new field and search for created and add the date created for this project. Grapple supports date-time formatting, so if I wanted to change this format to month-year, I could really quickly format that to month-year instead. If I come to Command-K and add, I can see all the fields across all of the collections for all of the joint data sources that I have, and there are a lot of them. So we could, for example, bring in the status for customer subscriptions and see what those look like. A customer might have multiple subscriptions, and so we'd see the data fan out like accordingly. I can sort on a column. So maybe I want to sort descending here and see who has a subscription that isn't active, maybe to prioritize them. So we have one trial right now. Maybe I want to prioritize that. Let's actually generate a bar chart that shows me sort of the spread of my users by subscription. I can go count per status, and Grapple will automatically generate a bar chart for me showing me across all these statuses. Super fast. I used natural language to generate that chart. And I didn't even need to correctly specify all of the exact columns. Grapple we share sort of the shape of your data, none of the underlying data, and the model's really good about reasoning about what fields I'm talking about when I describe with natural language. So we can see here that a lot of my customers are inactive, a lot of them don't have a subscription, and then many are canceled, or sorry, only a few are canceled, incomplete, or trialing. So this is a pretty healthy business. Most of our customers still have active subscriptions, and there's only a few that I would need to worry about. I want to exclude people who are not customers, meaning they don't have a subscription. We can do that too. So I'm going to go click up here to Ask Grapple, or you could use Command K. I'm going to come to Filter, and then I'm going to say Status is not complete. And this will generate a new filter, and it will update the entire rest of the project. And we'll also update the chart. And so we should see in a second if this chart updates and excludes projects that it looks like it's not doing that. Let's take a look here at the underlying data and see. So for some reason it is including status. So let's try this and say is not empty, null, or undefined, and let's see if this more precise filter works. And it looks like that worked. Okay, so that's something that we'll improve the prompting for. So now we've narrowed this dashboard down to only people who are current customers. This project is still called New Supabase Project, and I want to rename it. So I can come with Command K, choose rename, and I can rename this, and I could say by top customers, by health, for example, or whatever you want, and then we see the dashboard update with the new title. Let's do a few more things. Let's bring in the name. So I'm going to add a field. Let's bring in the name of my teams. Oh, and actually we haven't joined those yet. So let's go back to map data. I want to bring in my team memberships from Supabase. So I'm going to come into here and choose user ID, and then team memberships and user ID. And so here I'm bringing in data from my actual app database. So I'm trying to start to understand product usage for these users. And so I'm going to join on team ID with teams on their ID. And so now we're understanding who has created an account and who is a part of the team. And so now we could come back, for example, and we could add a rollup. A rollup in Grapple works similar to how rollups function in, say, other products like Airtable or Notion. They operate across your stack of data. So actually, let me go back to this map. A rollup will execute starting from users across any joined data set and returns. So for example, if you wanted to count the number of tickets or look at across all your tickets, the oldest one, or sum the number of payments, or count the number of companies, or something like that, a rollup helps you operate across multiple rows of data that are joined. Compare that to a formula, and you can think about this just like a spreadsheet. In a spreadsheet, you use a formula that typically operate across just one row, whereas a rollup can operate across multiple rows. So let's go back to my project. Let's add a rollup, and I'm going to use this rollup to count the number of teams, and we'll start to understand if a customer has joined any teams. And so here we can see that team count was generated, and it's summing the count across multiple teams because the user can be a part of multiple. So let's clear this sort, and then let's sort descending here and see who's a part of many teams. So it looks like Vicky is a part of 4 teams. And most people are a part of a few others. So let's generate a new chart to understand who our top users are. So let's add a bar chart and say sum count per email, and this will generate a bar chart across multiple emails. So we can see that and in this mock data set, emails are reused across users. That was a mistake I made when mocking this data. So this math might look a little funny, but it is working. And we're seeing here that TinyPick is actually one of our top users, which is pretty cool. So it's really quick to understand who kind of your power users are. Maybe this person's using a ton of different teams at Grapple to build lots of different dashboards. For a chart, I can always audit and understand what aggregations are occurring, and I can click on the settings for the chart in the upper right corner, and I could edit these settings individually or manually, but in this case, I'm just going to delete this chart so we can keep going with the demo. I'm also going to delete this chart just so that we can see kind of the data table a little bit better as we're constructing this project, but we'll come back and add it again. I want to add I want to add some new fields. Let's bring in data from Zendesk. So I could come and do a roll up and go count the number of open tickets not closed. And this will figure out how many tickets I have that are currently open. And we can see that math here as well, which is pretty cool. Let's do one more thing. Let's create a roll up and let's say some deal amount when stage is not closed lost or closed won. And something that's really cool about this is that if you were a HubSpot nerd like me, you would actually know that in the HubSpot API, the data comes through as deal stage, not stage. But you don't have to specify deal stage. You don't have to specify the exact field name. You can just sort of broadly gesture towards the field you're trying to filter, and Grapple will understand and interpret what that means. And so I can hit enter now, and this will generate an aggregation of any of my open deals across my contacts. And it looks like maybe this query didn't work. So let's try and audit it a little bit. Let's click on this and go descending and see. So everything's 0. So that prompt didn't work. Let's modify this one more time. Let's just start with some deal amount. Oh, that's because deals aren't joined. So I'm not going to be able to do that for this demo because I wasn't able to join deals, but we'll save that for next time. Let's see what else I can do. I could, for example, bring in the most recent payment status. So I'll come to roll up and I'll go, what is the most recent payments status? So we'll do that. And this will generate for us when the most recent payment. So we now have the most recent status, but I also want to know the most recent day. So one thing you can do in Grapple, you can reprompt the entire thing. You can also clone a field, which is cool. And we can now clone it and then edit this. So, for example, I could come in here and change this to say, when is most recent created date instead of status. And this should work. Let's see. I didn't have this planned today. And so it looks like maybe that didn't work. Let's remove it and try it one other way. Let's try roll up. When was the most recent payment? And we'll see if this works. And it looks like, okay, so that second prompt worked. And so we can see here that most of these customers' renewals went through earlier this month. Again, mock data, so they're all aligned to one day, which is a little funny. So now we have some data. Let's really quickly filter out succeeded. You can always come down into this data table and actually use quick filter here. So I'm going to go does not contain, just to really quickly see, okay, we do have some customers whose payments didn't go through. And so I want to know about those. So I'm going to sort this column on descending so that we prioritize those up at the top. And then I'll remove this and we should see, let's go ascending. And we should see those at the top here instead, which is great. So now we have some data points where we could actually build a customer health dashboard. So we could, for example, say a customer is high priority if their subscription isn't active and their payment, their most recent payment status isn't succeeded, or we could say they're medium if they have open tickets. And we could use that to understand which of our customers need attention. So let's go ahead and start to add a formula. So again, a formula operates across individual rows and a rollup operates across all of my joint data. So we'll choose formula and we'll say make customer priority high if status is not active nor succeeded, and medium if open tickets is greater than 0, otherwise low. And I misspelled otherwise, but Grapple still can understand what I mean, and I didn't specify exactly all my field names, but Grapple will still understand what I meant. And you can see here that it's properly generating that. Let's add a visualization now that shows me the count of customers per priority. So let's go count per priority and hit enter, and this will generate a new bar chart for me, which is pretty cool. So this chart is a little bit different from the other customer health dashboard because the logic is a little bit different. And so thankfully, we only have 5 high priority customers, which is really great. Let's add a number to the top of the page that shows me how many high priority customers I have. So I can go count per priority here. And we're going to go ascending on priority name. And this will help us just make sure that high is at the top. And so we can see here that high only has 5 compared to the next one, which is low at 521, which is great. Let's do a couple more things. Let's just count. Let's do a number and just count the number of total customers so we can just sort of get a sense for how big our book of business is, which is great. And you can see as I'm adding numbers, the dashboard is sort of automatically formatting intelligently for me, which is pretty cool. We can modify charts. So let's say by customer priority, I want to change this to a pie chart. I can do that. And then I can also resize it, for example, to medium, which is kind of great. One thing that I want to do is I want to show a data table that sort of summarizes the data table below so that I can really quickly understand who I should be emailing. So we can come into table, for example, and we could go return like count, or not count, let's show emails by priority ascending. And we should now see a table here that visualizes all of our high priority customers, and it actually summed those for us, which is helpful. But the chart over here is doing that already. So actually, let's modify this. It's still a table. I'm going to refresh and just make sure that okay. So I'm going to change customer priority. I'm going to remove this, and I'm going to instead go by email instead. And now we should see this update. And it's going to take a second for it to load, but we should see, let me refresh and see if that fixes. Let's remove customer priority, and this should work for us in a second. Our new pivot tables are kind of a newer feature, and so I think that's why maybe it's not loading correctly for us, which is super fun. And let's see, grouping by email, counting. Let's let's remove the count and see if that's what we want. I might need to build this table a little bit differently. And then let's also show this the customer priority in the list. And we'll see this update in a moment. And one thing that's cool is this is, it's not going to load, unfortunately. I think we need some work on tables for that type of pivot. So I'll delete this and I will mark this as large. And one thing we could always do is in this data table below here, we could bring this and we could sort it by ascending and see always the customers who are high at the top of the table. So that's another way to do that. Thank you so much for joining me. Again, today we built a customer health tracker to understand across several apps the health of my customers. It was awesome hanging out, and if you have other dashboards you'd like to see me build or that you're working through, feel free to send me a chat message or shoot me an email. However you can get a hold of me, and I'm here to just help you solve your data problems. Thank you so much. You can head over to cloudgrapple.com to sign up for an account. Thanks.